Welcome back into my study. It's very nice to see you again. You know that I love Gerard Manley Hopkins, and from time to time I like to pull him off my shelf, dust off my little book of his poems. Today is very interesting. He breaks even a lot of his own rules, of which he has very few. That's probably what I love most about him is you have to take him for exactly what he is. He's his own beast. He doesn't fall into any one camp very neatly. In fact, I think he takes delight in breaking a lot of the conventional norms of poetry. And this poem is no exception. He keeps it very firmly rooted in Christ, while at the same time pressing you, makes you philosophize a little bit. You'll see what I mean. I'm going to read it through best I can, and then we'll digest it line by line, okay? It's called The Soldier. Yes, why do we all, seeing of a soldier, bless him? Bless our redcoats, our tars, both these being the greater part but frail clay, nay, but foul clay. Here it is, the heart, since proud it calls the calling manly, gives a guess that, hopes that, makes believe the men must be no less. It fancies, feigns, deems, dears the artist after his art, and fain will find as sterling all as all is smart, and scarlet wear the spirit of war there express. Mark Christ our King, he knows war, served this soldiering through, he of all can handle a rope best. There he bides in bliss now, and seeing somewhere some man do all that man can do, for love he leans forth, needs his neck must fall on, kiss, and cry, "Oh, Christ done deed! So God made flesh does too." Where I come o'er against, Christ cries, "It should be this." I mean, very confusing, but you have to admit, it's very provocative. Even if you don't know what he's saying, you know he's saying something important, okay? So let's go through this. Yes, why do we all, seeing of a soldier, bless him? Why do we bless soldiers, okay? He's identifying a phenomenon in the world that doesn't matter what you know about the war, doesn't matter whose side you're on. If you see a man in his fatigues, you say, bless you, more than likely he's a noble man going about his business as a soldier, following his duties, okay? And why do we say bless him? Well, and then he illuminates a little bit further. Bless our red coats, our tars, so he gives examples. Both these being the greater part, but frail clay, nay, but foul clay. So he says, why are we blessing them? These are both, both the red coat and the tars. They're both in the greater part, by and large, but frail clay, like from clay we are made, dust to dust sort of thing. And then he says, no, not even just frail, foul clay, tainted by sin, concupiscence. And he says, here it is. So he's identifying it for us. This is the crux. Here it is, the heart. Since proud it calls the calling manly. Okay, so the heart is proud. It's a proud heart that a soldier wears in his chest. And it calls the calling manly. So it's good for a man to do this calling. Gives a guess. So it's guessing, hopes that. It's hoping, makes believe. It's making believe. It's imagining. What is it imagining? The men must be no less. So it's imagining that the calling is so high and a man shouldn't be anything less. It's hoping that a man shouldn't be anything less. It's hoping that this is the ideal. This is what I should be doing, to die for land, for country, for family, for God. That is what his hope is, that men be nothing less than that. That's what a soldier is. This heart, it feigns, fancies, it deems, that's another thing, and it dears, so it loves, the artist after his art. Soldiering is an art form. I mean, it's a hideous art, but it is an art form. And so it fancies, feigns, deems, and loves the artist after his art. So insofar as a soldier is doing what a soldier ought to do, those things I mentioned before, love of land, country, family, God, and defense of those things, it's a noble thing. And fain will find as sterling as, And fain will find as sterling all is smart. So it's basically saying war strips back a lot of the illusions that we have about life, a lot of the vicissitudes of life, things that don't really matter, um, just the excess. It strips that all bare, and you see what a man's heart really is. And scarlet's wear the spirit of war there express. So in war we wear the spirit, this scarlet spirit you might call it, because it's blood colored, and it's expressed in the soldier. And so the soldier is sort of an emblem for all of those things, and we say, bless that, bless the ideal man. That leads us directly into the next verse here. So you can see there's two verses. Mark Christ our King. So he says, take note of Christ our King. He knows war, served this soldiering through. So he did the whole soldiering thing himself also. Look to him, how he's an image of this. He of all can handle a rope best. When I first read this, I thought, well, yeah, ropes are used in war, but that's kind of a weird thing. You might say a knife. He can handle a knife best. Then I thought, well, no, it would be wrong to say, he handles a knife best. After all, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Is that really what Gerard Manley Hopkins meant? He handles instruments of war best? No, I think he's talking about like a noose. He handles unjust death, or even just death, like he's the God of the living and the dead. And so we look at a noose and we sort of cringe, like, oh, that's an instrument of death, of torture, of the sin in this life. Either way, if it's a just hanging, it's still so sad that a crime was committed in the first place to necessitate death. And we know the Catholic's position on the death penalty. And then if it's an unjust hanging, like a lynching, I don't know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that also is something to be absolutely disavowed and to shrink away from. And he can handle that rope best of all, because he was actually a victim of that same rope. It was a tree in his case, but that instrument of unjust death. There he bides in bliss. See, Christ on the cross bides in bliss. The things that people want in this life, it's wealth, it's power, it's fame, and it's pleasure. Okay? Those are all the four things which Christ sacrificed on the cross. On the cross, he had no pleasure. It was excruciating pain. No wealth, completely naked. No fame. People were spitting at him, reviling him. And so that would be like honor. And then, so wealth. Oh, and then power. He stripped himself of power voluntarily. He could have had an army of angels come and save him from the cross, but he didn't. Okay? And so and if you look at the Beatitudes, it's sort of following that same line of thought. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn. Blessed just means happy. So really, Christ, you could say, was the happiest man on earth on that cross, because he was the most blessed. He had emptied himself of all those things. That I actually learned from Bishop Robert Barron. So he bides there in bliss. Now, and seeing somewhere some man do all that man can do, so seeing a man, a soldier, doing that same thing as best as he can, imitating Christ. So when he sees that, for love he leans forth. For love, out of love, Christ leans forth. Needs his neck must fall on. Kiss. So he's kissing the soldier's neck. There's this intimate, I guess you could just say this intimacy shared between them in the understanding of what war is, what death is, what fighting justice is. And then the soldier and cries out, "O Christ done deed." Christ done meaning Christ done. So the deed that Christ did. "O Christ done deed. So God made flesh does too." Again, God does flesh does too. So God made flesh, so the man. So man does too. Just as you did, so am I doing, Lord. And then there's a colon. Where I come over again, Christ cries, it should be this. So Christ He's saying that to Christ, and then Christ comes back. He says, it should be this. He's affirming what he's doing. In that pit of despair, in that trench, in the dugout with the bombshells raining all around him. Is this worth it? Is my heart going to stand it? Christ leans over, gives him a kiss on the neck, says, it should be this. Just as I did, so you're doing, it should be this. This is the right thing to do. And that's why we honor our soldiers and our veterans. That's why it's such an offense when people don't. It grates against us because they're doing exactly the best that they can in the broken world that they inhabit, which is what Christ did. So, I don't know. I love this poem. I hope that you get to maybe share it with someone and honor a veteran in your life. I guess to share it with you in a more tactile way, there it is for you. You can pause the screen, okay? All right, God bless you all. Take care.